All right. Welcome, Bulldog families. For those of you who don't know me, I think that most of you do know me. My name is Dr. Chin, and I am the founding school director here at DSST Middle School at Noel Campus. And I am excited to talk to you tonight about in-person returning options that you have for you and your family. Next slide. Before we jump into today's session, just a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to be together until 6 p.m. today, but just in case you have to hop off a little bit early or there's issues with technology, which we know happen in this day and age, please know that we will be recording this town hall. And at the end, there will be a Q&A session. So I'm going to try to leave as much time possible for questions, hopefully anywhere between 20 and 25 minutes for questions. And then the bulk of the presentation will be me walking you through all of the information to help you make an informed choice about whether or not to ensure that your child is remaining online or coming back in person with us for hybrid.
Buenas noches a todas las familias, solo para informarles de que estaremos teniendo interpretación en español el día de hoy. Si marcan el número 720-902-7700 y entran marquen el número de ID 383-314-2119.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Gutierrez, for that. Next slide. So I know that for every single parent in our country right now, and for you in particular, what is top of mind is what exactly is this in-person hybrid and what is it going to look like this fall, specifically in the context of COVID-19, which is a very serious time. So we're going to dive into that right now. So on this next slide, I have listed our 6 core values. And I'm putting these up because I think it's really important because these are tough times. As a parent, I'm a parent, and I'm sure you are experiencing like this is just tough. None of this is anything that we wanted to do. You know, some of our kids are doing well with online learning and some of them aren't. And our teachers want, you know, we all want to be in person with our kids. And so these times are tough. And I think it really calls upon us to really lean into our values, values like respect, responsibility, really doing your very best with the cards that we've been dealt in this situation. And I just want to ask every parent and every member of our community to use as much, assuming positive intent, as much patience as you have, because we're going to need this as we go through this process together. Next slide. So what we're going to be talking about today during this town hall is really, I'm going to be giving you as much information as I can for you to make the best decision. So it was announced last week by our CEO, Bill Kurtz, that we will be returning for families who make the choice to do so. We will be returning October 26th for an in-person hybrid option. And that is going to be through your decision that you make will be through the end of the first trimester. We'll revisit whether or not you want your child to be in person again at that point. That is an update from our last conversation last week, Wednesday. So happy to provide that update to you all. The survey should have hit your inbox by now. And if you don't have the link to your survey, there are a couple things you can do. One is you can just reach out to the main office. You can even tell us what your choice is and we can enter it for you. We can also send you that link again to make sure that you have it. You have to have your choice in by Wednesday of this week, October 7th at 5 p.m. And you are choosing one of two options: to have your child 100% online versus in person with us, which is a hybrid. And we'll talk about what all this means right now. Next slide. All right, so we want to make sure that we're answering all of your questions, and you might get questions throughout the presentation. There is a button that has a question mark. So if you hover your screen, you'll see it, and that's where you're going to add your questions, okay? And you want to hit send, and we will get all of those questions. And again, like I said, the last 20 to 25 minutes of this segment will be me answering those questions live for everyone. And again, that portion will also be recorded. Next slide. Two very important things I want us to keep in mind as we get into the weeds about what this will look like. The first is that we will continue no matter what. If you choose 100% online or if you choose to go in-person hybrid, your kid will be receiving a world-class education. We are very dead set and intentional on that, regardless of the format. So I want to make sure that I'm committing that to you. And if you find that we are falling short from that, I ask you to hold me accountable to that and reach out right away. The second thing that is most important to us is keeping your child safe and keeping our entire community safe. So we're going to talk about what does that look like and how can we work together to ensure the safety of every single bulldog in our community. Next slide. So our agenda is we are going to discuss how did we get to this decision. Just a quick reminder, I know we've sent emails about it. I'm going to describe to you in detail the in-person hybrid option. We're going to talk about health and safety protocols and then quickly some takeaways and next steps. Next slide. So how did we get here? Next slide. So we have been looking at data for weeks, and some could argue months at this time to make sure that we are making the most informed decision possible. So we have looked at the health metrics that we've sent you all. Those are also available on our website. And what we've decided is to go back for all of the reasons that you see listed on the screen. For one, some of the uptick that we've seen in the Denver metro area in Colorado has been specifically related to colleges and universities. So we were able to parse out that data to say, when we see a little bit of these tick ups, like where is this happening? And it's by and large on college campuses, and we are actually now beginning to see those numbers drop as colleges and universities put in policies and procedures and rules to make sure that their kids are even safer as well. We're also, once you parse the data, you can see that the K-12 student numbers around COVID have been decreasing. We've also been very encouraged by the success we've seen at Cherry Creek School District, one of our neighboring school districts. They've been in hybrid since we started eSchool, and they are still in right now with a high degree of success. And then overall, positivity rates have remained low. So we've done a deep dive into all of the health and safety metrics to make sure that we are making a decision that is backed by science and data. Second to that is parent input, which is really important to us. And we continue to hover at about 70% of our families wanting us to provide an in-person option. We've all seen the research from health and education experts that in-person learning is just better. It's better for kids. It's better for everybody involved. And we also want to name that this decision is conditional, right? We will continue to look at health and data metrics to determine whether or not it's safe, and that could change. We don't want that to change. but we will be having an additional touch point on October 16th to make sure that we make a finalized decision. So right now the decision is final, but again, as you know, with COVID, things are changing rapidly. So if we get into a space where the data deems that it's unsafe for our kids to go back, we will plan accordingly. Next slide. So let's talk about when we go back October 26th, what is in-person hybrid and what does that look like? I want to name, before I dive into this, that the information that I'm going to share with you is contingent upon very strict health and safety guidelines and school district guidelines. And it has prohibited us from doing a lot of things that we want to do. So I want to name that the schedule that I'm going to share with you isn't the most ideal, right? Like, it's not what it would be if we were fully in person. But it is definitely the best that we could do with the guidelines that we have. So I want to name that there is a lot that we are able to accomplish, and I'll be sure to highlight those as well. Next slide. So here we go, in-person hybrid. What does this learning experience look like? So the first thing, as I said, this will begin on October 26th. What that means is the week prior is now a full week for fall break. So normally fall break is on Monday and Tuesday, starting on the 19th. Kids will have 3 additional days for fall break. We may be sending home some work that they can do asynchronously over toward the end of that week as well. So stay tuned for that. But kids will be offline, like not connecting with us for an entire week. That's going to give us 3 days to prepare ourselves, our building, and our staff for all of these new systems and routines that are going to be very different than what they were when we were in school pre-COVID. The second thing to know is that students will be grouped and will attend classes 4 consecutive days every other week. So if you're opting in, right, let's just say your child attends next week, Monday through Thursday are the days that they would be attending. And then the following week, Monday through Thursday, or actually the entire week, they will be online. So they're going to rotate almost a full week online, offline, in person. So that's what it'll look like in terms of the rotation. And now Fridays will be fully remote, and they will be our shortened days. Okay, there will still be academic programming on Friday, so kids still need to show up, but they will be fully remote. And the reason for that is we have to do a deep clean of our entire building, and we don't want anybody, teachers won't be in the building. There'll be maybe 1 admin on duty on Fridays, so everybody will be out of the building on Fridays. We'll all be working from home online on Fridays. So again, kids, if they are coming in person for this hybrid, they would attend with a group, like an A group essentially would go in week 1, and then the B group would go in week 2. And so Wednesdays will now be full days for all students. Okay, so that is changing. That is a change from our current schedule. And families can always select to remain fully remote. So let's just say you decide you want to go in person and you want to try out the hybrid model, and for whatever reason you don't want to continue with it, you are always at any point able to go back to virtual, 100% virtual experience. Transportation will not be provided unless it is explicitly named in a student's 504 or IEP. Okay, so transportation is not provided for any middle schoolers or high school students connected using DPS transportation. I have provided approximate bell times. I want to let you know that the schedule is not final, but it will be final in about a week or so. Once the schedule is final, I will send it to you, but I wanted to give you an approximate start and end time so you have something to plan on. I do not anticipate much variance from these times, although there may be variance. We're still in the approvals phases of our schedule. So we will have a staggered entry and exit based on grade level. So for 6th grade, they will start at 7:30 and end at 3. For 7th grade, they will start at 7:40 and end at 3:10. And for 8th grade, they'll start at 7:50 and end at 3:20. I also want to name that if families have multiple grade levels at our school, that we'll just have the siblings wait. Like, let's just say you have a 6th grader and an 8th grader. The 6th grader, although they get out 20 minutes early, will have a place for them to wait for their sibling so they can all exit at once. All right, and again, as I said, final schedules will be available and we'll get that to you as soon as we have it. Next slide. So this is just a little bit of an explanation of what our hybrid schedule looks like with a visual on the right. So within each grade level, Okay, we are going to divide kids up into cohorts. One way to think about a cohort is to think about a homeroom, a group of students, and those students will be sort of divided in half. So if it was a class of 30 or a homeroom of 30, 15 of those kids will be in the B group and 15 will be in A. A group will be online 1 week while B group is in person, and then they will rotate every other week, as I just mentioned. There will be 4 sort of cohorts or sections of students per grade level. And we are anticipating that in-person class sizes will be anywhere between 15 and 20 students. And again, this is contingent upon your decision, whether you want your child to participate or not. We also have a group of students who will always be remote, who just plan on doing remote between now and the end of the year. That is perfectly fine. Next slide. What will instruction look like? So this is a question that I've gotten a lot. So the first thing that you should know as a parent is, regardless of whether your child is online for the entire school year, they're in the A group or in the B group, they're going to get the exact same instruction at the same time. So the way that we're going to do this is we're going to engage in something called concurrent instruction, as opposed to split instruction. So concurrent instruction is where the classes in person and remote are being taught at the same time. So there's 15 kids here in a class, and then I have 15 kids up on my screen, or 20 or 25 kids up on the screen. The kids on the screen can see the kids in the class and vice versa, and the teacher is managing from his or her laptop the kids online as well as the kids in person. We also have proctors and student support to support with this model as well. We're actually really excited about this model because there are a lot of advantages. The opposite of this is split instruction, which is when you're in person, you're getting an education in person, and then when you're remote, you're getting a separate thing, right? It could be the same content, but delivered at a separate time. So concurrent means no matter where you are, you're getting the same content at the same time as the rest of the students. This allows for your kids to remain as consistent as possible with their current teachers and kids in the classroom. And if we have students who need to stay home for a long period of time, or if we have to go in and out of this model because something happens with COVID or whatever happens, or if one of our staff members gets sick, this model allows for your child's education to not be interrupted, or to mitigate that interruption as much as possible. So we will be using mostly a concurrent instruction model at Noel, which we're excited about. Next slide. All right. So one question that we've gotten already is, how will this affect my students' need to switch to remote? So if they're in person and they need to go to remote, does this concurrent teaching impact them? Absolutely not. In fact, it's perfect for that. It's perfect for going back and forth in person to remote and vice versa. So that's one of the reasons why we selected this instruction option, which we're excited about. Another one is around students who receive special services. So we are excited to announce that all students receiving special minutes and appropriate supports are getting them in this environment as well. So our students with special needs, they have teachers that are assigned to them to push in, to push out. They're doing that with a combination of virtual support as well as in-person pull-out support of groups smaller than 10. English language learners who are working on their English, they will get serviced through social studies. Some of them are also being pulled out, and we're able to do that both virtually and in person. And we also have those math enrichment and reading enrichment courses, which we love and are highly effective for our students. We are also able to continue those in this model as well. Next slide. All right, and so we are also trying to hold true to instructional minutes. So we have instructional minutes that we are required to hit, and we are happy to say that we are able to do that. So our kids are spending the most time where it matters the most, and that is in English and math. As you can see, for 75 minutes. We also have math, science, social studies, and electives for 50 minutes. And again, Fridays are mostly support classes and check-in opportunities and fun connection opportunities for kids, and opportunity for kids to work on homework during that day, as well as makeup work. We also have a lot of breaks and transitions in between classes as well as within classes. So if you look at a 75-minute class, there are brain breaks, fun activity breaks. You go into any class, the breaks all look different. There are stand-up stretch breaks. Also, if your child is at home, and they need to take a break, they know the protocol. They just teams the teacher to let them know they need to turn off their camera to take a break. That's totally fine. So do what is best for you and your family in addition to what we provided. And then again, we've already talked about the services that are being provided. So we are also going to continue to offer office hours as well as mandatory tutoring. And there is a focus reflection that will happen. And we're still trying to work out the details on how we support kids with that as well. So stay tuned for more on that. All right, next slide. Let's talk about lunch. So lunch is going to be within a cohort. So we have to keep kids within a small cohort. So they're only interacting with a small group of teachers and students throughout the day. So cohorts do not mix. We make sure they do not cross paths. Because of that, we cannot have lunch in the lunchroom because that would mean multiple cohorts of students are interacting. So students will have lunch. It'll be a grab and go style lunch. So they'll pick up their sack lunch at a location. A teacher will walk them there. They'll come back into the classroom and have their lunch there. They will have recess, although it won't be like it was before where we had kids playing touch football, soccer, you name it. So we will have some activities that they can engage in, and they'll be able to get out and walk and engage with one another in a safe distance. All right, we already talked about the Friday schedule, fully remote. That'll be our shortened day, which is now Wednesday. That's moving to Friday. So I wanted to name that, and that kids will start in advisory on Friday. They will also have a lot of asynchronous opportunities. iReady is something that they can avail of anytime. And we will also have clubs and other activities, and those will be virtual only because we do have a limited amount of adults that kids can interact with throughout the day. So that's the rationale for that. Next slide. So now we're going to dive into some of the health and safety protocols that we're going to be implementing. And these are really, really important to ensure the safety of everybody at Noel. Next slide. So the first one for you to know is that we will be engaged in social distancing daily. That is 6 feet apart at all times. So even when kids are outside waiting in the morning or waiting to be picked up outside at dismissal, they do need to be 6 feet away from each other, and they do need to wear a mask at all times. Everybody in the building, staff, admin, everyone is required to do those things. Desk, kids will sit at a single desk, not at a table, and they will be at least 3 feet apart, if not farther. But when kids are up and about, they have to remain 6 feet away. We will have backup masks that are disposable that are available. So if a student forgets one, or if you as a family need a mask because you don't have them at home, we do have an extra supply to help fill in those gaps for sure. Hand washing and sanitizing will be happening frequently throughout the day. So before and after breakfast, lunch, as well as every time they enter a classroom. There will be a lot of cleaning and disinfecting happening. The restrooms will be cleaned 3 times a day. High touch areas such as desks and that in the classroom will be cleaned with each transition. So every time a new group of students comes in, there will be cleaning happening to ensure that we're not transferring germs. We will also have medical assistants that will be circulating and supporting at DSST campuses, in addition to our school nurse. We also have an isolation protocol. So if a staff member becomes sick, or if we think that a student is sick, we have a designated area to isolate them until we can connect them back with parents or with the proper care. Water fountains, this is a big change. Kids cannot drink from the water fountains. So every student needs to bring a water bottle to school. They are allowed to go to the water bottle to fill it up, but they cannot drink from the water fountain. We will have backup water in case kids forget, adults forget things. We'll have backup water, but please make sure your child has a water bottle. If you need support with that, please reach out to the front office and let us know. And lockers will not be available. So kids will not go to their lockers. They can't congregate in the hallway as they have in the past. So they will be taking their coats and all other materials with them from class to class. Next slide. This is also a huge change to our arrival procedure, and arrival to school is going to take a lot longer. So I'm just going to ask you all to be patient Get your students ready to be patient in the morning. That is why we have that staggered entry by grade level by 10 minutes to help. But students will, not just students, but all staff, including myself, all teachers, have to fill out a daily health screener, okay? And this is a rigorous process, one of the most rigorous I've seen, honestly. So students need to complete this survey, and it says things like, have you been around somebody? Have you had a fever? Or have you had symptoms in the last 24 to 48 hours? Everybody has to complete the screener every day. We're hoping that there will be a way for students to, there will be an app that we'll be able to provide, and students can show us that they completed the screener on their phone. A lot of our kids have phones. If they don't have phones, there's another way for us to do it. You can fill it out every morning before you come. This is not the most fun thing to do. I can tell you that because I have to do it every time I enter the building, and it's not fun, but it is one of those things that is necessary to help ensure all of these pieces add up together, that everyone is safe. So know that every child is required, before I can let them upstairs, okay, into our building, they have to complete the screener. If a child forgets to complete the screener, we have a way that we can have them complete it upon arrival. But that's obviously going to slow things up a little bit. We also have an infrared temperature that will take kids' temperatures as they walk in. Okay, so it's not one of those handheld ones. It's one that's already set up. It's pretty cool. I've actually haven't seen anything like it, and it takes your temperature as you walk in. So we will have that as well, so that we can make sure we're keeping everybody safe. So when you select the hybrid option, you will receive an email with a link to download this application so that you can get that screener complete. Next slide. Next slide. So really important that if your child is experiencing any symptoms that are even similar to COVID, that you keep them home. That is the best action to take. Even if you're like, I think this might be a cold, I would just keep them home. Why? Because you know they're going to get the same education when they're at home as they would when they're in person. So there's not like they're going to lose out on their education, and I think it's better to be safe than sorry. If we do have a student who arrives in the building and they don't pass our daily screener, or they have a temperature, we will immediately call you, the parents, and they have to be sent home. So just be ready for that. If they do have a fever when they come, we do have to send them right back. All right. And again, the child would just have to be working from home. And if they do have any of these symptoms, we would just need a doctor's note, or they would have to stay out of our building for 14 hours in order to pass to be back in school. Next slide. So your job, and I'll talk about what our role is going to be in a minute, to help support with the safety, is just really making sure that you take your child's temperature if you have a thermometer at home, and make sure you're assessing their health daily before they leave. Making sure that they take and wear a clean mask every day. That's going to be hugely important. And remind them that they need to stay 6 feet away from everyone. And reminding them to wash their hands, you know, covering and sanitizing, and covering any coughs and sneezes, like with their elbow. So continuing that and bringing that bottled water is really going to help us. And so making sure that you arrive at the designated drop-off and pickup times is going to quickly ensure we don't have those long lines outside. And we are also asking that all families remain in their car and they don't come into the building. So, because that just increases everybody's risk, but you are welcome to call us. We can schedule a phone call or a virtual meeting with you, but no parents or family members are allowed in the building other than the students. That is a big change from last year as well. Next slide. What should you do if you believe that your student has been exposed, or if there's a sibling that's sick? Should you send the other child, or should you quarantine all the children? So the thing is to quarantine them all. So if you have a sibling that's sick, yes, we believe that everybody should remain home and just access school remotely. And then, of course, if you suspect that your child has been exposed, please contact the front office right away so that we can work with you and your family. Next slide. So this question is, will my child ever return to remote learning if we choose in person? And so the answer to that is yes. they can. So if you choose in person, they could return to remote learning if they've been exposed or if they test positive or if they're symptomatic, or if they refuse to follow the safety protocols. So they have to keep those masks on. And if that becomes a problem, we will have to have them access school online. So that is something that we will do if students are not following the safety protocols. Obviously, we will reach out to you parents first and make sure that we are working with you on that. And then if there is a community outbreak or an outbreak within a cohort, your student may have to go online for a period of time. So those are the scenarios by which, you know, if there was an in-person choice, that we would have to go to remote. Next slide. So here's what you can expect from us. The first thing is immediate one-on-one communication to all families. If anybody, you know, if we believe that anybody has gotten COVID, we're going to communicate that with you and make sure that you are well informed, and that students automatically go back to virtual learning. So we will keep you informed of that. We can't share details if a particular child gets COVID. We can't share names to respect the family's privacy, just as you would want us to respect your privacy. But we are tracking and keeping track of all cases and information throughout our network. And obviously, if you know there's a school closure or if we return to virtual, we will let you know that as well. Next slide. So we're getting close to some questions here, and wanted to talk to you quickly about future communications and what you can expect. So I know you've been receiving a lot of communication and it's a lot to keep up with, but I do ask that you please check your email daily. You're checking and reading our newsletter and our social media, because there's a lot of updates that are important for you to know. So what's coming is a comprehensive family guidebook that details everything that I've said in this presentation and more, so you can know exactly what to expect. There'll be a link to those health and safety metrics that we look at daily that you can look at that are stoplighted to see if they're red, yellow, or green. All the information is transparently put in this family guidebook, so that is to come. Instructions on how to use the daily health screener tool. So again, if you sign up for hybrid in the survey that was sent to you, that has to be complete by Wednesday, you'll get that information. Details on drop up and pickup times, as well as other specifics, because we are going to have to spread students out during arrival and pickup time. And again, if you choose in person, you'll be hearing from us about your child's cohort information, and just continue weekly communication via flyer as well as our newsletter. Next slide. So just as a reminder for eSchool, kids have been doing great. They've been in their uniforms from the waist up, and they've also been participating in our fun challenges, our dress down days as well, which are really fun for us and for kids. Next slide. So when we come back in person, we will go back to full uniform, which is not very different from what we've been doing in eSchool. They would just add the bottoms to that, but just wanted to name that. Next steps on the next slide. And then right after this slide, I'm going to open up the floor. It looks like we already have some questions coming in. So next slide, please. All right, so the next steps for you are to fill out the survey to select whether or not you want to do 100% virtual or in-person hybrid. Again, the deadline is this Wednesday, October 7th, 5 p.m. If you are having trouble, you're like, I didn't get the email, I don't have the link, you can simply email us just your student's name and your preference to our DSST-Noel at scienceandtech.org. If you need help with any of this, don't hesitate to reach out to the main office. We're happy to help. This is an update from last Wednesday, okay? So I was asked this last Wednesday. This is a change, so I want to highlight that. Your decision when you fill out the survey and say, I want to be virtual or I want to be hybrid, that is good through the first trimester. After that, we'll be looking at if you want to change, there could be an opportunity for trimester 2 to make that change. All right. So what I will say is that you can choose to go back to virtual at any time. So you don't have to wait for the end of the trimester for that. At any point, if you want to come out of hybrid in person and go online, you can do that. All you need to do is email Ms. Gutierrez, our office manager, and let her know you want to switch to 100% virtual, and we're happy to help. And again, more details to come in your inbox. So now I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor for questions. We have about 27 minutes left for questions, and I want to make sure that I spend the remaining time there. Okay, so this question is, if we opted for 100% remote the very first survey, do we need to opt for it again? There seems to be a lack of either responses or communications. So no, you don't have to opt for it again. If you already opted in, you can just leave it there. If it were me, I would just go in and double check just to make sure that it's still marked 100. But if you are like, I already filled out this survey, I'm good, I don't need to do it again, go team. We did ask all families to fill it out again because we have had a lot of families change their mind, like wanting to go in person. So you will need to fill it out again if that has changed. I personally, just to cross every I and cross every T and dot every I would go in and make sure that's still there. All right. Ms. Gutierrez, there is a question in Spanish. I don't know if you see that, but if you can check that out, and then I'll go to the next one until you hop on. What do you mean 100%?
Yep, the parent is asking how many students are going to be per class?
We don't know that yet because that's contingent upon all the families filling out the survey, which won't be done until Wednesday. However, we are anticipating that for in-person, which is I'm assuming what the question is about, that it will be anywhere between 15 and 20 students. All right, so the next question I have here is, are there any changes when you choose remote learning? No, so it'll essentially be the same process except the schedule will change slightly. So the start times, end times will change slightly, but by and large, things won't change for you if you continue the remote option. All right, so the next question is, what if my child doesn't have transportation? So then you would select the virtual option to stay virtually unless you could carpool or join with another family that is driving and dropping their child off. We do have some families that carpool together, but there is no transportation for middle schoolers or high schoolers unless it is written directly in a 504 or an I. How will things like mandatory tutoring or focus and stuff like that work? Great question. I do think I went over that a little bit, but essentially we will have mandatory tutoring as well as college prep in the last block. So the last block will be like a study hall where kids can get their work done, they can get support with their homework. Then some other students will be pulled out of that block for mandatory tutoring, college prep. Refocus, we're still refining that right now, but we are still planning to have the reflection part of Refocus happen for students. It might not be in a specific block of the day, so they may have to do it in the morning when they come in during morning check. If they have Refocus is what we're thinking about right now, but mandatory tutoring, office hours will continue to be on Fridays, and college prep will be in effect at the end of the day in the last block. You'll see that when you get the schedule. Do water bottles have to be transparent? No, we do not have any transparent requirements around water bottles. So the question is, are they still required to have all materials in their backpacks? What if it is too heavy for them to carry around all day? Thank you for that question, Christina. We have had a few kids that have had like super heavy backpacks. And so what we normally do is we pull them aside and just kind of say, hey, do we need all this at school, or what can we leave? My kids were also guilty, like taking every single pen and pencil that they needed. Our 8th graders kind of get it by now, but I would say this is mostly like 6th graders. So we'll work with them. They won't need as much materials as they would if we were like fully in person. So if your child's backpack is too heavy, we usually notice that when they're walking around with it, and we'll pull them to aside and just make sure that we're clear on what exactly do they need every day and what don't they, especially considering that they won't be going to their lockers. If we are sick, can we go online? Absolutely, we highly recommend that. And that's part of the reason why we created that schedule the way that we did, is to make sure that we can support any and all people going back and forth as needed. Will we have time to talk to our friends? Yes, you will have time to talk to your friends. That's one of the biggest pieces why, you know, in person, that human connection is just so important for everybody. So yes, there will be time to talk to friends in a safe way. If we have chosen in person already, do we still have to let you know if there's no change? So if there's no change, you don't have to let us know. But if there is a change, we do ask that you complete the survey. When was the survey sent? The survey was sent last week on Friday. Again, if you didn't get it, that's okay. You simply just need to email us your child's name and what your preference is, and we'll take it from there. Easy peasy. Will there be a mass dress code? That is a great question. We have not thought about a mass dress code. Right now, we just want all of our students to have a mask. So as long as it doesn't say anything derogatory, I think we're fine with that. But your mask doesn't have to be a particular color. It could be bright pink. It could be camouflage. So no, we do not have a mass dress code. Have club times and dates changed from Wednesdays to Fridays? A lot of clubs will be happening on Fridays. It depends on the club. Some of them will happen on other days during the lunch block. So it really just depends on the club. That information will be posted to our website and updates in our newsletter as well, so you know exactly when those clubs meet. How can we order uniforms? Ms. Gutierrez, do you want to take that?
Yeah, so you can either purchase them online or you can go into our vendors in print. And if you shoot me an email at DSST-Noel@scienceandtech.org, I can definitely send you the address. Or if you go online, it's nobulldogs.com.
Thank you, Ms. Gutierrez. We do not manage transportation. So we have a question about, have you guys managed transportation for students who live 3 miles away? We don't manage transportation at all. That's strictly through Denver Public Schools. We use their transportation and they are not providing any for middle schoolers or high schoolers. And the question is, if I have a child with special needs who opts for in-person, will they have the same hybrid schedule? The answer is yes, with the exception of the fact that in some classes, an extra teacher will push in to support them and potentially pull them out to support them, depending upon what in their IEP as well. But it is by and large the same schedule. Is the survey through Infinite Campus? Ms. Gutierrez, if you want to answer that one.
The survey was actually a Google form that was sent out through our home office. Like as Dr. Chin mentioned, you are more than welcome just to send us a quick email or leave us a voicemail on our phone line and let us know what your student's name and your preference, and we will take it from there.
All right, we have a question in Spanish. If you want to take that one at the top.
Yep, so they're asking what kind of masks they're able to use.
Oh, I already answered that one. So the next question is, do they need to bring hand sanitizer? You are welcome to bring hand sanitizer, but we have plenty at school. I know, Mike, I have a personal one because it has a little bit more moisturizer in it. So if you want to send your kid with hand sanitizer of their own, you're welcome to do so. They don't have to bring it. We do have some available. Is fully remote option through the end of 2020. It's through the end of trimester 1, so it doesn't go quite till then. But again, we'll be revisiting that in December. December is when we'll revisit it. How can I find a carpool? Ms. Gutierrez, do you think we are going to be able to send any information out about that? I don't know that we have any right now.
I can definitely look into it, but I don't have any information. So if you can shoot me an email again at DSST-Noel@scienceandtech.org, that way I can figure out, maybe I can help out create a carpool for you with another parent.
All right, if we've changed to go 100% virtual, can we go back in person? Not during the first trimester. So once you choose virtual, you have to stay there until the end of the trimester where we will revisit that decision. A person said, I joined late. Am I able to watch this meeting later? Absolutely. It will be on our website and we'll be sending out a follow-up email so you can rewatch it if you like. There is another question in Spanish, Ms. Gutierrez.
They're wanting to know if they're going to be using more supplies other than what they've been using at home.
We will send out an email with more information on any additional supplies. Essentially, it's the regular supply list that we sent out over summer. We'll resend that out. We can also shorten that just based on the fact that we may not need all of those things. So we'll get that out as soon as possible. That's a great question. And then you said the school times will change. What will the new school times be? Our schedule is not final, and it won't be final for another week or so. But right now we are guesstimating that 6th graders will start at 7:30, 7th graders will start at 7:40, and 8th graders will start at 7:50. So all of them staggered by 10 minutes. Doesn't the student have to take health examination before starting in-person learning? No, they do not have to have a physical before starting in-person learning. They just have to meet the health screener that has to be done daily before entering the school. So the question is about how do we do the survey when the coronavirus ends? If the coronavirus ends, and there's a vaccine and that's clear, then we won't have to do that screener survey anymore. Lots of questions about supplies. We'll definitely get that information out in our next communication for you all. When will we be notified if my child is A or B group? As soon as you all, after we get the data from family. So you all have until Wednesday to get that information to us. So next week, our goal is to send information along with the schedule. So you know not only what the schedule is, but what cohort your child is in. Okay, so the person said, can you talk more about the teacher having to work in a classroom with a group of students and with students online? How is he or she going to monitor the kids online? So the kids will be monitored online the same way that they're monitored right now. So they have different tools that we use. Pear Deck is one that kids have to do their work, and you literally can scroll through and see kids' work as if they were writing on the paper. The kids that are in the actual classroom, their work will be reviewed the same way because we have to be 6 feet away. So we can't mark up their paper like we used to. So everybody, we call it aggressive monitoring, and we monitor student work throughout the entire lesson so that we can make sure we're giving real-time feedback to students throughout the lesson. So that won't change because there are kids in the classroom and kids online. We also have the latest technology that enables kids to be able to see online what's happening. It's this big camera that enables to see if a teacher is writing the board in a classroom, the kids online. New age technology, nothing that you and I experienced when we were in school, for sure, at least not me. So that's what that concurrent teaching will look like. If we choose 100% virtual, do we have to be in full uniform? No, from the waist up for virtual. So that will continue just as it has been. If a student does not follow the mask protocol, that is like a huge violation of safety. So we will definitely talk to that student and make sure we're clear. After that, that student will likely be online only. So that is the grounds for being online only. So coming out of the physical school to doing 100% virtual learning, if we cannot or will not follow safety protocols, we take that very seriously. We take all of our rules very seriously, but that one in particular. If my child arrives before 7:30, will he or she be able to go inside, or will they have to wait outside? So we do not provide we only provide supervision 15 minutes prior to the start. So the earliest start is 7:30. So 15 minutes prior, there is adult supervision. Not all actually allowed to come in on a regular day anyway, because there's just a lot of kids. And because we have to do these screeners, we can't just let massive amounts of kids in the building. So kids do wait outside. If they're there a lot earlier than that, or earlier than 15 minutes, that's a different conversation. And so love to chat with you, Elizabeth, about like what time are you talking, just so we can have more information about that. The mask cannot be like a Batman mask. It actually has to be a mask that's designed to cover your mouth for COVID. So it can't be a costume mask. It can have Batman on it though. So it can have like a fun character, but it can't be like a full face mask. If they are in person and stay home not feeling well, do you call them even though they are working from home that day? So we don't call students into the class. They would need to come into the class. And as long as you all let us know they're sick, we can denote that for attendance purposes. Now, if they just don't show up at all, we will call to say, hey, are you okay? You're supposed to be in school. So we'll definitely do that. What is the latest you can change the form from in-person to remote? The latest you can change that form is Wednesday of this week, 5 p.m. So the question is, if they have mandatory tutoring in person, will they still be doing mandatory tutoring in person? So mandatory tutoring, yes, if they're in the building and if they're remote. The last block of the day is a study hall, mandatory tutoring and college prep. So kids will be doing one of those three things for the last block, in person as well as remote. You have another question in Spanish, Ms. Gutierrez.
They're asking if they can take a box of waters for their students so they can have them at the school.
Oh, that's a tough one. We don't have a ton of space for anything, honestly. Like, we have a ton of materials that we're getting, even for COVID, and we are actually really short on space. So I don't even know where we would put in additional cases of water. Because we have to have backup water for people who forget their water, like staff and students. So I think the best course of action is to buy an empty water bottle for your child, and they can fill it up with water and bring it every day. That's the best way, because we do not have space to house cases of water. Somebody said they didn't get the survey. How do I get it? You simply, so DSST-Noel at scienceandtech.org. And we can get you the survey. You can also just tell us what your preference is, and we can get that information that way. Is there any requirements around wearing gloves? No, there is not, but there's a lot of hand sanitizing and a lot of hand washing happening throughout the day. Gloves are not required. What is the probability to be able to change hybrid for try 2 if we decide 100% virtual for try 1? Honestly, it depends on how many people make that choice, but based on the data we've seen, I think it's pretty likely for you to be able to do that. I have 3 kids. Can I drop them off at the same time? Yes, you can. Does the mask need to be over the ear style, or can they wear kinds like neck gaiters? So we are asking that they wear the actual mask that go over the ear in lieu of neck gaiters, just because neck gaiters have proven not to be as effective as an actual mask. But if you want to talk more specifically about your neck gaiter, we can do that. So feel free to reach out to the front office, but mask is what we are asking kids to wear. Kids can bring their lunch to school, or we will be providing lunch either way. So that's going to be your choice. So the question is, will those staggered times be for online learning as well? And the answer to that question is yes-ish. They won't necessarily, kids online won't start at the same time as the kids that are trickling in doing the health screener, because kids online don't need to do the health screener. So the kids online will need to start when advisory starts, and we'll denote that on the schedule. It'll be very clear. There'll be an arrow that says that where the online kids start. How many kids in total will a teacher have in a classroom plus online? So anyway, we're anticipating anywhere between 15 to 20 students in a classroom, probably closer to 15 in person. And there could be, it varies by subject. There could be 20 or 30 students online. I think for some social studies blocks, there's 40 students that could be online, but where we have that in social studies, we do have 2 additional teachers pushing into support. Because we want to make sure we keep that teacher to student ratio as low as possible. How will students change classrooms? Will teachers be the only ones doing the changing? We do anticipate having kids change classrooms. We just think getting up and moving around is important. Sitting in the same class all day is just not good for kids' health. However, we are intentional about those transition times and making sure adults are present, walking kids to the next class to make sure that we're being safe in the hallway and keeping that 6 feet of distance. So there will be classroom transitions. There might be a few instances in the schedule where teachers change, but for the most part, students will be changing classrooms. And again, cleaning is happening each time that rotation happens. Will sports be brought back for kids? That's a great question. Right now, we are not anticipating any sports being brought back right now for middle school. We'll keep you up to date with any changes based on sports. Do they need to wear black shoes like always? They can also wear brown shoes, and yes, full uniform. What is the bathroom code? Can we go to get water? So yes, you can go get water to fill up your water bottle. You cannot drink out of the water bottle. And we will be letting students use the bathroom, but you have to go almost one at a time, or only a couple students can be in the bathroom at a time, depending on which bathroom it is. So we will have adults in the hallway monitoring to make sure that kids aren't congregating in the bathroom, because again, that would not meet the 6 feet distance requirement. We have 4 minutes and I have 10 questions. I think I can do it. Let's see. Oh, thank you. Just want to let you know how much I appreciate all of the extraordinary work that you and your team have done this year. The communication, the teaching, the attention my scholar receives, even online, has been wonderful. Thank you. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. We all have been working really hard for our little bulldogs. All right. And will Fridays work the same as Wednesdays right now? Absolutely. So Wednesdays right now, moving to Fridays. That's a great way to think about it. How do kids use the bathroom? So we are in the process right now. I literally was in a meeting for an hour talking about bathrooms and passes, and they can't touch passes. So how are we going to make this work? Kids will be able to use the bathroom. They just have to keep that distance, and we have to limit the amount who's out there at once. So we are in the process of creating a system for bathrooms right now that we will teach our teachers as well as our students that process. Will we have to pay for school lunches? We don't have to pay for our current lunch pickup. Ms. Gutierrez, can you address that?
Yes, I believe the answer is that we will not be charging for school lunches this year, but I will get a more straightforward answer for you guys and add it to the newsletter. This is a really good question.
Somebody asked, what is the lunch code?
In order for your student to receive their lunch, I believe it's just their student lunch number, if that's what you're referring to.
Okay, there's a question about, what about RTD transportation?
So all of our students who are 12 through 18 are eligible to get a free RTD pass. I did add more info about that on the newsletter I sent out last week. So if you want to refer back to that newsletter, if you do not have access to it, go ahead and shoot me an email and I will gladly send it over your way.
All right. Thank you for that, Ms. Gutierrez. So this question is about, because we don't have transportation, will we have a before school sign-up program? We actually don't. We're not able to do before school programming. We also aren't able to do after school programming. We pushed back really hard. We're like, we wanted to do clubs after, we wanted to do a lot of things after school. we are not able to. Kids have to be dismissed all at the same time, and we can't have any before school or after school activities. And this has to do with the health and safety guidelines that are pretty strict that we have to adhere to. So I appreciate you thinking about that and thinking about our kids, and we feel the same way. And so, yeah, just really appreciate everybody's partnership on this. So the question is, how are they going to be safe during lunchtime? So they're going to be in a cohort. So lunch is just with that small group of 15 to 20 kids that we had talked about, where they'll be going to class all day. So that's who they'll have lunch with. They won't be having lunch in the cafeteria with 150 other kids like before. So it'll just be that small group, and they'll be in a classroom. They'll be proctored. There'll be an adult in there to make sure they safely go walk, get their back lunch. They walk back to class, and they eat their lunch. They can talk, 6 feet away. And they'll be with, they'll take their masks off, but they'll be spread apart. So that's the plan for lunch right now. And then also recess, they'll be in small cohorts as well during recess. These are great questions. Please keep them coming. It is 6 o'clock, so we're going to end this session now. However, again, feel free to reach out to your child's advisor. They are a great person to connect with any questions or details that you want to go over. And then, as always, please reach out to our office manager, our front office team. They're amazing, as you probably already have realized, and we're happy to partner with you. And we're looking forward to continue communication throughout this entire process. So thanks, everybody, for your time today. Have a great one.